What's going on, Colts Nation? Appreciate you joining me for another video where in this one we're going to talk a little bit about some stuff I'm seeing all over the internet about kind of whose fault it is, right? Throughout the AR situation. And this one, I tell you, it's not blameless. And actually quite the opposite. I think this one has a lot of blame to go around. And I think it's pretty much everybody involved, to be completely honest with you. That's the outright answer. And just everything I've seen, from Chris Ballard to Shane Steichen to the quarterback coach, even Cam Turner, who, had some comments, I believe it was in October or November of last year. And then just a few days ago, and then of course trickles down to AR. And so ultimately, when you look at this situation and where we got from where we were, it's just everything has fallen into a place where this is just a complete organizational failure at the highest level, right? So first, when you look at where it all started, right? You're trying to win, right? And Chris Ballard takes a lot of flack, and I'm not saying he's blameless in this whole thing. I give him some grace because as a Colts fan, I want us to stay in a mode where we're trying to win now. I was okay with going and getting Phillip Rivers and Carson Wentz and Matt Ryan. I was okay with that because I wanted the Colts to win, right? I didn't want to have to see us get a young guy that, on his rookie deal, we're probably not going to win a Super Bowl because that's very rare that you win a Super Bowl with a quarterback on his rookie deal. And I wanted us to be able to compete. I thought we had a good roster, and we needed a quarterback to really be able to compete. Now, obviously, Gus Bradley was entered into the equation, and that situation didn't work out. But whatever the case, Chris Ballard, at the end of the day, at some point, should have been trying to draft guys. I guess he drafted Sam Ellinger, but that clearly was never going to be an answer at the quarterback position. I don't think they ever saw it that way, which could also be its own issue. At some point, you had to take a swing somewhere, right? And people are pointing back to 2020 when we go and we have the 13th pick in the 2020 draft. We end up getting Phillip Rivers that year, and because we were the favorite to go get Phillip Rivers, it was likely we were going to go get Phillip Rivers. Well, they said we don't need this first round pick. Let's give it to San Francisco and let's get DeForest Buckner, which by all accounts, love DeForest Buckner. I'm glad he's a Colt. I hope he's able to retire. Well, always did hope he retires as a Colt. At this point, I'm hoping all these stars end up leaving so they can go try to win a championship elsewhere, which is incredibly heartbreaking to come to that conclusion. But DeForest Buckner is somebody that I'm very happy ended up in Indianapolis. I thought that was something that we needed at the time, and I thought it made sense. But as hindsight being what it is, right? In looking back on the situation, at some point, Chris Ballard, even if it was a swing and a miss, you had to swing, right? And he just never really did until it all fell apart in 2022 with Matt Ryan. And then we end up with the fourth pick. And unfortunately, we didn't lose enough games, right? Like the Chiefs game, there's an argument to be made. Chiefs got cheated out of that game, right? And I'm if we lose that game, I still looking back on it, don't know if we end up in the position where we can get above the Texans. The Texans ended up with C.J. Stroud, who seemingly, for everything that this regime wanted in a quarterback, C.J. Stroud was really the one that they wanted, right? And I think that was evident going into the 2023 season. I think pretty much anybody that knows ball, anybody that could read between the lines understood that, with Bryce Young going number one, really they would like a situation where, CJ Stroud somehow fell to them at 4, right? Now, they're, by all indications, even still to today, there was never a realistic possibility of the Colts being able to trade up to that number 1 pick. The Panthers were never going to give it up. The Colts would have had to give up a ridiculous amount. And from what I saw in Nate Atkins' article, Michael Pittman Jr. might have been one of those pieces that gets moved in order to get to the number 1 pick. So then you'd bring in a franchise quarterback without the number 1 receiver. Right. And then at that point, Alec Pierce becomes the number 1 receiver. You draft Josh Downs still at some point in the draft. Maybe depending on what else you have to give up in terms of draft capital to get to number 1, just to get over the Texans at number 2 to be able to get CJ Stroud. And then all of a sudden CJ Stroud goes 1, and then you possibly have Bryce Young going 2 to the Texans. And then at 4, you maybe still end up with Anthony Richardson to the Panthers. So moving up was never really an option. So Anthony Richardson was really, through the whole process, kind of destined to be a Colts quarterback. I think that realization set in maybe a month or so before that draft happened, that it was going to be Bryce Young and CJ Stroud. I can't remember who went number 3, but that was, Will Anderson, right. Ended up, Texans traded up to number 3, ended up getting Will Anderson. And then Anthony's right there to be able to take at number 4. And the reasoning behind getting Anthony Richardson right is all there. We've been through it enough. But where we've come since that point, the failure to develop him really starts to fall on Shane Steichen and Cam Turner, who, as the and of course Jim Bob Cooter is not blameless in this as well, being the offensive coordinator. But Shane Steichen calls the plays. So what is Jim Bob Cooter doing? Not a whole lot of people mentioning him. What is his role in all this? Cam Turner, I've seen comments from him. I've seen the things that he said, and I'm just going to put it plainly. Dude sounds like a doofus. Sounds like he said that, I think I've done everything I could. No, you haven't. You drafted, and this is where I get upset at Shane and all the coaches, because you draft a guy. When you draft him, he's 20 years old. Shortly after drafting him, he turns 21 years old. This is a very young man. Right? Very young man with little experience, knowing where he comes from in his life, like the way he grew up and where he comes from. This is a guy that both as a player and as a man, we need to develop him so that he becomes the professional that you need him to be. And they just never seemingly were able to get that done. Right? So at the end of the day, whose role was it supposed to be to really, in a professionalism standpoint, show him, hey, this is what you need to do. Again, you have to understand where he comes from. And if you don't understand where he comes from, then it's hard to really understand this argument. I don't want to have to sit here and lay it out. I come from similar circumstances as Anthony Richardson in different ways. And you just overcoming those things as a 21-year-old is almost impossible if you don't have the correct guidance. He needed guidance in those areas. It's just a fact of the matter. You can sit here and say, he's coming into the NFL. He should have already known that he needs to show up at this time and to do this and to do this and to do this. This is somebody who got to where he got because of incredible athletic ability and raw talent. That's it. The potential of what you could mold him into is how he got to Florida. It's how he got to the number 4 pick in the NFL draft, because of the potential of what he could be. He needed guidance to get there, and this coaching staff and this front office never gave it to him. Right? And shout out to the players that after the tap out game, right, the different players in the locker room that went to him about his leadership, they probably should have done that before. Again, this is a young guy, needed to get under the wings of some of the veteran guys and be shown this is the way we do things. And leading by example is one thing, but right, being able to really go to a guy, get in a young man's ear about, hey, these are the things that needs to happen. That's why it's a complete organizational failure. Not to put it on the other players, because it's absolutely not the player's job to develop a quarterback at all. But I do think at some point throughout the entire team, coaching staff, the players, they saw the habits, and all of a sudden, when the tap out games happen, all of a sudden now the habits are a massive issue. And so up to that point, what were we doing? At what point did anybody in the organization really take the time to say, hey, listen, man, we need you in the building? Like, you're the quarterback, you got to lead by example. So let's have you in the building at 5:30. We're going to need you here at 5:30 a.m. Right? You need to go listen to all the Kobe Bryant clips you possibly can, talking about Mamba mentality. You need to learn exactly what he did. That's what we want you to do. That's really what it comes down to. We need you to be in the building. We need you to be, done with your workout as soon as other people are showing up first thing in the morning. Like, the things that it was going to take to be an incredible NFL quarterback, to be the professional that you need him to be, and seemingly throughout the entire organization, that didn't happen. Now, with all that said, we're talking about the accountability elsewhere. There's accountability on Anthony Richardson, because as a young man, he made his mistakes. Obviously, getting hurt his rookie year stunted his growth in a lot of ways, right? If he doesn't get hurt, then maybe some of the mistakes that were made along the way are made his rookie year. And as a 21-year-old, he's able to get a little more grace because he's a rookie, and these mistakes are going to happen, but we need to learn and grow from them. But then it happens in his second season, right? And at that point, Steichen in this regime, like, now you're getting to a point where time's running out. You can't keep losing. And so the development of your quarterback starts to become less important, because you need to start to be in a position where you can win now. So ultimately, this is where I drop back on, this is massively Shane's fault, because by all accounts, Gardner Minshew should have been the week 1 starter, had a better camp coming in, right? That in Anthony's rookie season, Gardner had a better training camp coming in. He was somebody who had plenty of experience, but because everybody was on the train of this guy needs reps, me included, everybody was saying, hey, just put him in there. We'll live through the ups and the downs. And we ended up only getting a small sample size because he gets a concussion early on, has to miss a game. And then you end up in a position where he comes back, and in that Titans game, obviously ends up crunching his shoulder. The AC joint's a problem, and then he's out the rest of the season. For most of the next offseason, he's rehabbing, and then OTAs start, right? And then he's not even fully back to throwing all the way when OTAs come around. So then it's basically nothing happening up until the point of training camp, right? And then what we saw in his second season kind of showed, like, the preparation leading up to training camp wasn't there. And what happened in 2022 was inevitable. It was always inevitable. It was always going to happen. And so we end up in an unfortunate situation where, coming into his third year, he had a healthy offseason. He's been through some ups and downs. And by all accounts, he had his best camp. I think a lot of people agree, like, in terms of on the field, like, had a better camp than Daniel Jones. In the preseason, higher completion percentage than Daniel Jones, which completion percentage and stats don't tell the whole story. But for those people that like to harp on Anthony Richardson completion percentage were horrible, well, Daniel Jones got to play with the starters during the preseason, and Anthony Richardson had 57% completion percentage, where Daniel Jones had a 52% completion percentage. So higher completion percentage for those people that love stats. Anthony probably should have won the job in that regard, right? But if you disagree with that, then stop talking to me about stats, because stats don't tell the whole story. Go watch some film, okay? Just to get that clear and out of the way. But as we look at the situation coming into this year, I think the tea leaves were always there. You look at what people are saying, like, yes, the tea leaves were always there, but I honestly was in the camp of, This is more a move to put a lot of pressure on your young guy that has had some issues. You need him. It's time to go. You need him to buckle up right now. You need everything to happen right now. And by all accounts, from everything we've heard, for the preparation, for what we saw on the field, the improvements in between the white lines, it's all been there, right? Everything you wanted him to develop into was there. It's just happening a year later because Shane decided to play AR and he got hurt instead of playing Minshew, right? We're in a situation now where, oh, well, we're not going to give Daniel Jones a short leash. He's a quarterback for the entire season. Well, you should have said that year one with Minshew. Minshew's the quarterback. Week one, Minshew's the quarterback. Year one, unless something happens to Minshew, we're not going to see Anthony Richardson. And even at that point, with where Anthony Richardson was, his injury history, with all the different ways you needed to develop Anthony Richardson, he really probably should have been QB3. You have Sam Ehlinger as the backup. If anything happens to Minshew, you just deal with what you have to deal with Sam Ehlinger coming in because you have a young guy that you have to develop. But the injury, his rookie year to the AC joint, I cannot overstate how detrimental that was to his complete development. And now we're at a point where the coaching staff has lost patience because their jobs are on the line and they can't continue to develop him. They need to be able to win now, which is why they go with Daniel Jones, right? A guy who they say, you know what you're getting. You do know what you're getting. And through his career traditionally has been pretty inconsistent. I believe the number was 85 touchdowns, 73 total turnovers in 70 games, right? 24, 44, and 1. And overall, 24, 44, and 1, and you have one season where you made the playoffs. That just tells you how bad the other years have been for Daniel Jones. Over the last 2 years, Daniel Jones and Anthony Richardson have played the same amount of games due to injury. So by all accounts, it seemed like Anthony Richardson was coming into this and this was going to be his job. And now we're at a point where development has been completely mishandled. Like what they're doing this year is what they should have done year one. Year two was completely botched because he never really had the offseason. And so you probably should have come into last year starting Flacco because he didn't have the offseason to work. And then you could have turned to Anthony at some point throughout the season instead of being Anthony, Flacco, and then back to Anthony, right? Then you were never at a situation where Anthony gets benched. We're just in a situation where, hey, your rookie year didn't go well. We kind of messed up your development. Let's in year two, we have this veteran quarterback, Joe Flacco. Let's let him take the reins, get comfortable with this team. Maybe by the end of the year, we're able to get hot and go. If that never happens, we can insert you into the lineup once you have some time to get back into the groove of things, once you're comfortable throwing again, once you have time with the team again, and then we put you back in there. So all around, this was just a complete organizational failure from the top down, from, again, Chris Ballard to Shane Steichen to Anthony Richardson. Nobody is blameless. Everybody is to blame. From day one, everybody is to blame for what has happened with Anthony Richardson. We have not done right by him, and for all accounts, he has not done right by the people who believed in him enough to take him with the number 4 overall pick, which does hurt to say. I'm a massive Anthony Richardson believer. I'm somebody who I've seen it, and I know you guys have too, even for the people that say he's trash. You guys have seen the good. You can't act like you haven't. So that's where I am with the whole thing after having more time to think about it, being able to look at all the things that have come out about this situation over the last few days and everything everybody's saying, all the different points people are making, and really being able to take all the factual information and form my own opinion on it. It's just incredibly disappointing that somebody who really possesses the abilities to possibly be one of the best quarterbacks to ever play the game, hasn't been developed in the right ways, and he's still only 23 years old. So it feels like at some point somebody like Sean McVay could get his hands on him and turn him into exactly what we hoped. And hey, Sean McVay would never hire a guy like Cam Turner. Sean McVay is a guy who I'm sure could probably develop him in the right ways, which would be, again, heartbreaking to see him be great somewhere else. But one way or another, I'll always be a Richardson fan. I think he has it in him. And I just hope that one way or another, he just ends up in a situation that's best for him. Whether that be here or somewhere else, I hope it ends up being here. I hope there's a lot to learn from this year. And whatever happens after this season, we'll see. We're going to have to see how the season falls out. You know, we could have whole new front office, whole new coaching staff, and a lot of new players on the roster. We'll have to see what happens from that regard. But whatever the case, I'd like to see where you guys are with all of this, with us being a few days away from the announcement of Daniel Jones being the starter for the Colts. Where do you guys, see the blame being? Do you put it all on one person? Do you put it all, or do you spread it out into different areas like I am? I just want to see kind of what your guys' opinion is of this. You guys let me know down in the comment section. Of course, if you enjoy the content, make sure you hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed with notifications on so you continue to get notified anytime we drop any content on this channel. Of course, appreciate you stopping by for another video. And as always, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and go Colts.